I do so believe that it would be a good idea to have some listener questions. We've gotten plenty of them. We've got lots of emails. We got lots of audio. Why don't we do some? What do you think?
Let's do it. Why don't we start out with the text questions? Do you want to read the couple you have there?
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 sitting over here, and we might as well get to. We got one here from Steve. He says, Bryan and Chris, I came across your show today and enjoyed it. I will most likely subscribe as a regular listener. However, I had one issue. Well, I gotta be honest, Steve. You already told me you were going to be a regular listener, so I don't care what you think.
That's not true.
He goes on to say, I respect the fact that everybody is entitled to their own opinion and the option to decide if freedom is important to you or not. Okay. All right. To decide if freedom is important to you or not? Really? Okay.
It's a bit condescending.
Okay. That's a bit... Okay. He goes on to say in a really girly voice, there is, however, a difference between facts and what people want to believe. The fact is that RMS pioneered just about the entire infrastructure of the so-called open source movement. The only thing that RMS, GNU, and the FSF have ever asked in return is that the message of freedom is emphasized. No, actually, that's not true. They also have an entire infrastructure and they get paid. Why is it so hard for the current-day Linux guys... Oh, hold on. We'll get to that. Why is it so hard for the current day Linux guys to do that? He goes on to say, give the guy some credit because regardless of your thoughts of RMS and the FSF, without them, both your current distribution wouldn't exist. Okay, that's just bad grammar, man. Simple. Last, I would like to mention that GNU is goo.new. It is not, never has been, and never will be, in the parentheses G, ji.en.u, spelled Y-O-U.
Right.
He's trying to tell me how to pronounce. Yeah. He said he wants me to make sure I said GNU or he wants GNU. You know what? No. If you're going to make things an acronym, you get to say the letters. That's how acronyms work. That's just how they work. If you don't want me to say the letters, tell me what the words are and tell me to use actual words. Okay, so
before we get all crazy, I mean, he's kind of right. RMS really pioneered the whole open. I mean, it's not like Linus didn't come along.
You know what? What he's saying here is kind of sort of partially right in a demented universe where facts are thrown out the windows and the hard work of hundreds and thousands of peoples are cast aside so that we could sit down, kneel in front of RMS and do something dirty.
Right, because open source is a community effort. It's everyone.
It's a community effort. You know what? And to go out and say, okay, you know, that RMS pioneered just about the entire infrastructure of the open source movement is insane and ridiculous, and not only that, but completely in every possible way that you can quantify wrong. In fact, you know, people can say, well, Bryan, prove that it's wrong. Here's why I'm not going to do that. It is impossible to do that because you can't prove a negative.
Right.
The basis is so wrong in and of itself. There's no way for me to come at it and say, you know what, you're not wrong because X, Y, and Z. I can kind of throw some numbers around, but really, if someone's going to make a statement like RMS pioneered everything in the world and RMS made the fact that we have male babies in the world, if someone's going to say something like that, they need to come up and back that up. But you know what? I don't even care about that. I want to get right onto the statement that the only thing that RMS, GNU, and I'm going to say it outright, and the FSF, but you know what? I'm not going to say FSF. I'm going to say FSF because I want to at least adhere to some of their wishes. And they obviously don't want to ever pronounce letters, so we're just going to go FSF. Have ever asked in return is that the message of freedom is emphasized. That is not true at all. Is or is not the Free Software Foundation an organization with funding? Are they or are they not?
They are.
So that is not what they asked in return. In return, they asked for money. They're an organization with funding, correct?
Yeah.
If I'm wrong on this, someone tell me. But this is my understanding. So that's not what they ask in return.
Right.
And also, RMS does not ask that the message of freedom be emphasized. He asks that each individual strictly adhere not to freedom, but to RMS's view of what society and software should be. And if they don't do it, he calls them names, or has pit bulls that he sends out who run around in the guise of being lawyers and calls other people names and talks about the evilness of corporations and people and all this other stuff. And sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't. But either way, the message is advocated poorly. And I want to say this straight out.
You do have to give him some credit for setting up the open source frameworks.
Yes. And you do. You have to give him credit for the work he has done. And Richard Stallman has done incredible work. But that is in the past. All Richard Stallman has done, as far as I'm concerned at this point, is divided the Linux community, divided the free software communities and the open source communities, made us look like retards. There's a reason that a lot of people are going around using the phrases like freetard, right? I mean, this is like, if you listen to like some of the Revision 3 shows and other things, you see that word thrown around a little bit. The word freetard. You do. Yeah. And it's a horrible term, but the reality is what they're referring to when they talk about that is people like Richard Stallman who go around screaming and ranting in factually incorrect ways usually about how we don't love freedom and you guys are trying to you guys are not understanding what we mean by the word free and all these sorts of things. But when the reality is the Free Software Foundation and Richard Stallman are trying to redefine words that already existed, that already had actual words, to mean something completely different for any given moment based on their whim.
Wow.
And that is annoying, and I simply won't stand for that because it belittles the contribution of so many other people.
And if you have opinions on this matter,
stand for that.
JupiterBroadcasting.com/forum.
Yes, please feel free.
Why don't I read one? Why don't I read one to change the? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you want to read this one?
Well, I want to read. I'll read one just to kind of change the tone for a bit. We had a listener who got his hands on the T-Mobile G1, the Android runs Linux T-Mobile G1, and he said, "Linux Action Show guys, let's start this off on the wrong foot. The T-Mobile G1 is horrible." And then he goes on and he talks about he works in the phone. Let's just say he works in the cell phone market, so he has a lot of experience. He talks quite a bit about different phones. He says a little bit later on in his email, he says, "I use Windows Mobile, and I don't think it's perfect by any means. But HTC has modded the version of Windows Mobile, version 6.1, and included something called TouchFlow, and it is a much more pleasant UI than Android is." Now, the thing about Android is the UI is changeable. We're not like with Windows Mobile, you can load TouchFlow on top of it.
Right. What's the other one that's called Point UI?
Yeah.
But there's a few different things.
Those sit on top of the Windows Mobile UI.
But the core Windows Mobile UI is always there.
Yeah, but with Android, you can the UI is completely interchangeable. So that's pretty awesome. But he says
pretty cool.
He says I would put the functionality and annoyance of use level of Android even with stock level of Windows Mobile 5. Graphically, it might be better, but that does not count for function. Let's hope the future hardware of Android is a more solid and the UI is improved. And then he goes on to talk about how awesome Linux Action Show is.
Oh, man. Smart man. No, that's pretty cool. I really can't wait to finally get my hand on an Android phone and really go crazy with it. Because, I mean, if any of you guys have been watching some of the applications coming out for Android, the Android Marketplace, what's it? Is that what it's called?
Close enough.
It's only open source and free applications in there currently. There's
until 2009.
Buy or pay for.
Yeah.
And I was looking through a lot of the applications available, and there are some really great little tools.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been downright impressed.
Did you see
I've been playing with
you...
them inside the emulator, the SDK, and it looks great. And I do got to admit that even within the emulator, it's not the best phone UI I've ever seen. It's got some rough spots. It has some things that need to be tweaked. But I really like where their head's at. Yeah. I like the flexibility and the customizability. So
we'll get our hands on one, and we'll have a full review on the Linux Action Show.
We're gonna go nuts. We're gonna go nuts.
Definitely,
for sure.